All right, we're back. Listen, congratulations for making it this far. Most people, the average human being walking around is kind of a loser, right? They wouldn't even made it this far, right? But the fact that you have, I want to congratulate you and let you know that I appreciate the time you spent investing into your future. All right. So in the last few videos, we went over goals, right? And we set clear goals, right? We made a detailed plan and we set deadlines for it and put everything in our calendar, right? This is wildly important. You have to do that. As you may have noticed, that things get a little more sophisticated. Each one, right? Each step gets a little more sophisticated, right? Clear goals, all right, cool. Have a goal, deadline. I mean, a detailed plan. Most people don't have that, and they certainly don't have deadlines. You're already way above 90% of the population. But now we're going to take it to the next level. We're going to put it in overdrive with discipline because you still have to execute this plan now. You still have to execute your goals. And that's going to come with discipline. Let's start with the first part of discipline, which is do. And that's for do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, whether you feel like it or not. That's the definition of discipline, right? So let's talk about motivation. People are always asking me, Brandon, how do you get motivated? How do you have motivation? How do you have motivation? Right? How do I get motivated? How do I get motivation? You may be wondering it too. I want you to know this. I don't want you to feel bad about times you're not motivated. Everybody feels like that. Nobody is in a perpetual state of motivation. No one lives in that state. There's going to be times you feel like it and times you don't. Right? But here's the difference. Discipline means you do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, whether you feel like it or not. Right? It doesn't matter how you feel. You just do it. That's discipline. That is discipline. How do you get it? How can you get more of it? Right? Because it's important you get that because you're not going to feel like it all the time. You're not going to be motivated all the time. If you have motivation, great. You want to capitalize on that. But it's not going to be there all the time. It's just not going to be there all the time. Right? So how do you get around that? Well, discipline is the key. And discipline is a muscle. Like any other muscles, like it's like the bicep, the tricep, the glute, right? The stronger, the more you use it, the stronger it gets. You have to use your discipline muscle. And here's why this is important. Because when you're motivated, when you have motivation, you're fired up, man. You can't wait to do it, right? You're not using discipline when you're motivated. When you're motivated, you're not using discipline, right? So you can only strengthen your discipline muscle when you're not motivated. So you should get happy when you're not motivated, when you don't feel like it, because that's the only time you get to flex that discipline muscle. And every time you flex it, it's going to get stronger. Every time you do what you're supposed to do when you don't feel like it, that's what makes the muscle stronger. That's like the bicep curl that's going to build these biceps. That's like the squat that's going to build these glutes. All right. Right. So you don't want to rely, not only you not want to rely on motivation, you should not even care if you have it or not, because you want to use discipline and you want to strengthen your discipline. And you can only do that when you're not motivated. I know it's kind of like your mind might be blown a little bit. How do we make it stronger? Well, the secret is understanding how the brain works. All right. I've read a lot of books on neuroscience and things of that nature. And I've done a lot of studying. I had to, because I'm bipolar. So I had to learn how the brain works. And I came across a lot of information that I've been able to use to attack my goals. And I'm going to teach to you too. All right. So anytime you do anything, a neural pathway is formed. Right. So basically, it's like when you first learned to ride a bike, you were concentrating real hard. You had you were building that neural pathway and it got a little stronger every time you did it. Then you got to the point where you're popping wheelies. Once it's strong, you're popping wheelies. You're on the phone. You're doing other stuff. Same thing like the first time you drove a car. Right. First time you drove a car, you had your hands at 2 and 10. Right. You were paying attention, driving slow, and you were really focused on what you were doing. Now you drive a car, one hand, you're texting. You stop texting when you're driving. You're eating food at the same time. You're turning up music. You're singing along. It's no big deal. Why? Because you built a strong neural pathway. It's very important anytime you do anything, right? And the more you do it, the stronger it becomes. So the more you use your discipline muscle, the stronger it becomes. Now, one thing you should remember, it works in the opposite way too. If when you don't feel like doing something and you don't do it, you build a neural pathway of being a punk. You build the neural pathway of weakness, right? So now it becomes easier for you to punk out. And I'm trying to watch my language, to punk out and be a chump. instead of a champion. Why does this keep happening? It becomes easier for you to be a chump, right? With the wrong neural pathways. This is very important. This is very important. You want to strengthen your neural pathways. Anytime you do anything, it's going to it's going to make it easier for you to do it again. All right. This is critical. I hope you guys are getting that, right? So once the neural pathways become strong enough, it becomes what? A habit, right? And once it becomes a habit, you do it without thinking about it. Just think about how many times have you looked at your phone since you've been going through this course? How many times you looked at your phone? It's just a habit now. You built the neural pathway to do it. That's why my phone is literally locked away in the other room because it's distracted. It becomes a habit, right? So we got to build the habit of discipline, right? And that's going to make success a lot easier, right? And let me give you another example. This is a weak neural pathway. This is my son. When he was first learning how to walk, he was stumbling around, falling down. It was embarrassing, right? But he kept trying, right? He kept trying, and then he finally got it. Same way you went through the same thing. All of us. This is why the majority of the population can walk now. We all went through through this period where we try to learn something new, and it's difficult, right? Building discipline is very difficult at first, or learning to do anything is difficult at first because you don't have the neural pathway set. Right. But once the neural pathways are strong, now you can walk, you can jump, you can run, and you can make it happen. Now, here's the thing. This is key. This is critical. Pay close attention. The difference between you and a baby is that the baby had to learn how to walk. It was a must. Most people just want to be successful. It's not a must. It's not mandatory. Right. You get what I'm saying? Well, imagine if when he tried to walk, he said, man, I keep falling down. I'm just going to quit. This walking thing ain't for me. It's too hard, right? Imagine. No, he kept trying until he got it. Now he can walk, he can run, he can jump, he can smile, he can laugh, he can sing, you know what I'm saying? Because it was a must. And you did the same thing before. You've done it before in the past. You've been through this, right? We all have. This is why the majority of the population can walk, right? But it's got to be a must, man. If you just want to, it's going to be too difficult. You got to make it a must. And to do that, you have to raise your standards. Right? Because you don't get what you want to have. You don't get what you want. You only get what you have to have. Remember that. All right. And to do that, we have to raise our standards. And when you raise your standards, what happens is, right, you raise your standards. Now you have to do the thing that's going to build discipline. Right. And the more you use that discipline, you'll strengthen the neural pathways of discipline. Right. And then that's going to build a habit. Right. And then success is guaranteed. You know what I'm saying? Success will be guaranteed, but it starts with raising your standards and making it so you have to do the things. So you want to raise the things in your calendar now, they have to be a must. The plan we set out, that has to be something you have to do. You have to do it, right? You can't say, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll do it. No, you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to make it a standard, hold the line. And right. And that's what discipline is, right? And the more you do that, the easier it will be to do that in the future. And then it'll be way easy once you build the habit of discipline, and then success is all but guaranteed. This is making sense? I hope you guys are getting this. All right, let me give you an example of standards. So I got a friend. His name is Connor Murphy. Don't go looking up what he's up to now. He's went crazy, right? But anyway, Connor, as you can see, he was in phenomenal shape. He was like 24, 25, right? And he was in good shape as me, maybe better, right? At such a young age. And I was like, Connor, you know, how did you do that? He's like, oh, I just ate right and I worked out. You know, I've been working out and eating right for 10 years. And I just listened to him. But then we went, me, him, and some other friends, we went out to dinner. And he's like, oh, I forgot my scale. And I was like, you forgot your scale? He said, yeah, I got to weigh my food to track my macros. And I was like, don't even worry about it. I got a scale right here. I keep a scale in my bag. He was the only other person I know who walked around with a scale to weigh his food, to track his macros. That's why we look like this. Everybody wants to say drugs, steroids. I didn't start doing testosterone until this year, way before this picture was taken, right? Because I'm on TRT now, right? I'm old. I'm almost 40, right? And he was the only other person I saw who had the standard of hitting their macros every day, right? And I was like, Connor, what happens if you don't hit your macros? What do? You try to get more or less the next day? And he looked at me kind of confused, man. He was like, what? Don't hit the macros? What are you talking about? That just doesn't happen. I hit my macros every day. He looked at me like I was crazy, like saying, hey, man, what happens if you don't have time to brush your teeth? Right? You know, because it was a standard for him. Right? He just hit it every day. It didn't matter what happened. He didn't let life get in the way. That would get in the way of life, but he made sure it happened. And I was the same way. That's why we look like this. Right? That's why we look like this. Everyone wants to say drugs, but they don't understand that our standards were that high. Right? Our standards were, I never took a PED until this year. Right? I'm on testosterone replacement therapy because I'm old, right? But before that, man, I was in a phenomenal shape. So was Connor, and it was because of those standards, hitting our macros exactly every day, walking around with a scale in our book bags. We weren't fucking around, right? Because you will not rise to the level of your potential. You will fall to the level of your standards, right? So what kind of standards do you have to hit your goals? Well, they probably got to be elite standards, right? Because that's what we're going for. Remember, we're not going for good, right? We're not going for outstanding. We're going for elite. We're going for elite. This is very important. You have to raise your standards. Make the things in your calendar now, they have to be a must. They can't be a good idea or something you want. It's something that has to be done. Hell or high water, I'm going to do these things. I will let nothing stand in my way. Nothing will stand in the way of me and greatness because I demand excellence of myself. And I promise myself that I will rise to my full potential. And the only way to do that is to raise your standards, right? And when the standards have to be elite, right? So everything in your calendar, now that's a standard. I do everything in this in the time allowed it. I do it all. I'm not out here fucking around. No, I said I wouldn't curse, but sometimes I'm gonna slip out. That's how you have to be. You have to raise your standards, right? But then what's gonna happen, what you're gonna notice is life is gonna get in the way. Yeah, your standards are not gonna get in the way of your life. And you're gonna have to do some sacrificing to accomplish your goals at this point. And that's what we're gonna go into the next video. The next video is we're going to show how you can actually manage your life while maintaining elite level standards to make it a lot easier. I'm excited to share this with you. Let's get into it.